So when it comes to emotional regulation, do we allow ourselves to experience the emotion, or do we make ourselves experience something? Or when it comes to like crying, do we allow ourselves to cry, or do we force ourselves to cry? Hey, I'm Justin Sinceri. I'm a psychotherapist and a coach. I created something called the Polyvagal Trauma Relief System. So I got this comment on YouTube that I want to read to you, and then I want to address it. This comment, I think, is in response to how I know it. It's in response to how I kind of talk about these things, about emotional regulation, about feeling your feelings, about how to act or change your behavior. I think this has a lot to do with how I think about and word things. So I'm going to read to you the comment that was left on one of my YouTube videos, and then I'll respond to it. The comment is really like a mini poem with some lovely language in it. I'm going to read it entirely, and then we'll get to the really beautiful question inside of it, tucked into the flowery language as if it's taken a nap. It says, "Where is this weird allow yourself grammar bull coming from? You don't allow yourself anything. That's called doing something. You do something. You act. I've never seen a single person asking their mirror image for permission before they start crying. They just fucking start crying. What the is up with this alienating language?" So amid that beautiful, flowery, poetic language is a really great question. And that question is, how do we allow something? Don't we just do something? For you, dear listener, and put it in the comments if you don't mind. I'm kind of curious your thoughts on this. But do you make yourself cry, or do you allow yourself to cry? I don't think it has to be either or. I speak from my point of view. I speak from the way that I think and how I experience my own internal sensations, like the impulse to cry. I personally don't make myself cry. I allow it to cry when I need to cry. My body tells me, hey, it's time to cry, and then I allow the process to unfold. I don't do things that get in the way, like numbing through binge watching stuff on my phone or on Netflix, or drinking the problem away. I don't do those things. I allow myself the feeling, and I allow the impulse to cry to happen. You might frame that as you're doing something. I don't. That's just not the way I think about things. And the reason why is because it's really kind of grounded in my understanding of the polyvagal theory. The polyvagal theory teaches us that we have basically 3 bodily states. The first one is safety, and that's where we can socially connect, we can engage with each other. The second one's flight, fight, that's mobilization. And the third one is shutdown or collapse or immobilization. The body's ideal state is the safety state. When we're in the safety state, yeah, we can connect with each other, but when we're in the safety state, the defensive states, the defensive activation gets reduced. In the safety state, we can our body uses our resources more ideally or more optimally than in the defensive state, especially when we're stuck in a defensive state. In the safety state, our body can use oxygen and whatever else it takes in order to live a more ideal homeostatic functioning life. So the body is naturally compelled to do that. We are living organisms. That is the ideal state of our body. I don't think we're ever there 100% or all the time. We don't need to be. But when we're in that state of safety, the ventral vagal social engagement system, when we're there, when our bodies are in that state, it functions better. So the body is compelled to do so. It will do so, but we as conscious beings get in the way. We don't allow it to do so. We do things like doom scroll TikTok. We do things like binge watch Netflix. We do things like judge ourselves when we have certain emotions. So if we have that impulse to cry, or that feeling to cry, that emotion of sadness, we say, well, I'm too weak and I can't cry. My therapy clients tell me all the time that they are raised in homes where they're taught that crying makes them weak, that if they cry, they're not a strong person. So yeah, we don't allow it. We get in the way. If we were to pull back on those things, if we were to pull back on those beliefs, if we were to pull back on all the distractions we set ourselves up with, then we'd be left with allowing the impulse to cry. Once we allow the impulse to cry, the body can self-regulate into more of a safe and social state, and then optimize its resources better. It'll connect with the self. It'll connect with others. It'll keep this safe and social state rolling. It'll for ourselves, but also for other people. So the question is, don't we just do something versus allow it? I personally don't think that saying allow it is alienating. I think it's actually, for me, it really helps us to connect with what our body's telling us. And I'm going to talk about the body in a way as if it's talking to us. It's not, but we have this mind-body duality that we can use to make sense of things. So the body is saying to us, hey, I need to cry. So we as our conscious selves need to let it happen. And that means reduce a whole bunch of other stuff that we do, that like the distraction stuff. And then if you want to do something, the thing that you would do is feel your emotions. The things you would do is notice where that impulse in your body to cry lives. Something you can do is to describe for yourself if you're having difficulty crying, which is not easy for everybody. If you're having difficulty with crying, notice where it lives in your body and then describe it. Notice what temperature it is. Notice how big it is or what shape it is. If you can notice that and do that description thing, then it might unlock or unfold the ability to let the cry out. No, it's not just as easy as do this and do that. If it was, I don't think people would be stuck in a traumatized state. They can know what to do all the time. They can know the right answers, but that doesn't mean that they can do it. It doesn't mean that the trauma gets resolved. It doesn't mean that the impulse to cry actually happens. I think it's a lot more than doing. It's more about being with the body. It's more about being with the sensations, the impulses that are underneath our emotions. And then if you can be with it, your body will tell you what it needs and then you allow it. At least that's the way that I frame it in my mind. Again, I'm curious what you think. Put it in the comments. Maybe it doesn't have to be right or wrong. There probably is a nice mix of doing versus allowing. And I think I expressed that. But that's usually the way that I kind of think about things is we have to allow what our body knows. Our body knows more than our conscious mind. Our body knows more. It knows what it needs. It knows what it needs to do. We need to allow it. I do read all my comments. I don't respond to all of them. And if they're super long or super personal, I'm probably not going to respond to it. And I may not read all of it, but I at least skim it. I love all the love that you give me in the comments. It means a lot to me. It feeds me. It definitely motivates me to keep going and produce stuff for you. So your comments are more than welcome, but there's some stuff I just can't respond to. And there's some stuff ethically that I shouldn't respond to and I won't respond to. And stuff like this, I think it's a really good question, so it caught my attention. The language and all that, I don't need that personally. But if you need to vent by swearing in the comments on YouTube anonymously, go right ahead, fine. But I do appreciate there was a nice question here, and hopefully I addressed it. Bye.
This podcast is not therapy, not intended to be therapy or be a replacement for therapy. Nothing in this creates or indicates a therapeutic relationship. Please consult with your therapist or seek for one in your area if you are experiencing mental health symptoms. Nothing in this podcast should be construed to be specific life advice. It is for educational and entertainment purposes only. More resources are available in the description of this episode and in the footer of justinlmft.com.